Emily was only 9 years old, but she had a heart that believed in her German Shepherd more than anything else in the world. Max, her dog, was her best friend, her secret keeper, and her protector. He wasn't just a pet to her. He was like a brother, always waiting by the door when she came home from school, always wagging his tail when she was sad, and always standing tall when someone tried to scare her. That's why when the town announced there would be a big dog competition at the county fair, Emily begged her mother to let her join. At first, her mother laughed softly. "Sweetheart, are you sure? These competitions are serious. People spend months training their dogs." But Emily nodded with wide eyes, holding Max's collar in her little hands. "I know, Mom, but Max listens to me. He always does. He's special." Her mother finally agreed, and together they filled out the entry form. On the morning of the competition, Emily put on her favorite yellow dress. She tied a neat ribbon around Max's neck and whispered in his ear, "We're going to do this together." Max barked once, almost as if he understood every single word. When Emily arrived at the fairgrounds, she felt her stomach twist. There were so many people. Families with picnic baskets, kids running around, and proud dog owners brushing their pets' shiny coats. She saw big banners hanging over the stage. Annual Dog Talent Show. The air was filled with the smell of popcorn, hot dogs, and the sound of laughter. It should have been fun, but Emily felt tiny in the middle of the crowd. She held Max's leash tightly as she walked toward the registration table. Around her, other kids stood proudly beside their dogs. Some had golden retrievers, others had Labradors, and one boy even had a sleek border collie that looked like it belonged on television. All of them looked polished, trained, and ready. Emily felt her cheeks warm when she saw some kids whispering and pointing at her. "Look, she's so small." One boy laughed. "How's she going to control that big dog?" Another girl giggled, covering her mouth. "Her dog doesn't even look trained." "He's just wagging his tail." Emily's face turned red, but she looked down at Max. He wagged his tail happily, nudging her hand with his nose as if to say, "Don't worry, I'm here." That gave her courage. She lifted her chin and signed in her name, Emily and Max. As the competition began, the announcer's voice boomed through the microphone. One by one, dogs went on stage with their owners. The first was a brown Labrador who balanced a ball on his nose and caught it midair. The crowd cheered. Then came a border collie that leapt through hoops and zigzagged perfectly through poles. The audience clapped even louder. Emily's heart pounded faster with every performance. She glanced around and noticed more kids staring at her. Some of them smirked. She overheard one parent whisper, "That little girl doesn't stand a chance." Another laughed, "It's going to be a disaster. Just wait." Emily squeezed Max's leash and whispered, "It's okay, boy. We'll show them what we can do." Max barked once, standing taller beside her. When it was finally her turn, the announcer called, "Next, we have Emily and her German Shepherd, Max." Emily walked slowly to the center of the stage. Her little shoes tapped against the wooden floor. Max trotted beside her, his ears perked up and tail wagging. The crowd grew quiet for a moment, then murmurs spread. Some people chuckled. "She's too little. She can't even hold that dog if he runs." "This is going to be funny." Emily swallowed hard, but she didn't let the fear show. She took her place and looked down at Max. For a moment, it was just the two of them. She remembered all the times she practiced in the backyard. She remembered how Max always listened to her voice, not because of treats or whistles, but because he loved her. The judge, a tall man in a suit, leaned forward with raised eyebrows. "Are you ready, young lady?" he asked. Emily nodded firmly. She bent down and whispered into Max's ear, "Ready, boy? Just like at home." Max's tail thumped on the stage. Then she gave her first command, "Sit, Max." Max sat down instantly, his back straight and his eyes locked on her face. Some people in the crowd gasped. They weren't expecting such a quick, obedient response. Emily smiled nervously and continued. "Spin," she said, raising her small hand. Max spun in a perfect circle, his big paws tapping the stage, then stopped right in front of her, waiting for the next word. The laughter in the audience softened. The whispers quieted. People leaned forward, curious now. Emily's heart beat faster, but she felt a spark of courage grow inside her. She looked at Max, and he looked back at her with eyes full of trust. She realized this wasn't about proving herself to the crowd. It was about showing everyone the bond she and Max shared. For the first time that day, Emily smiled fully. She took a deep breath, raised her hand, and gave the next command. And in that moment, something truly magical was about to happen. The crowd was still buzzing after Max obeyed Emily's first two commands so quickly. Many people had expected him to bark, pull away, or ignore her. But instead, he listened to her soft voice like she was the only person in the whole world. Emily could feel her small hands shaking. But when she looked at Max sitting tall beside her, the fear in her chest started to fade. He was ready. He wasn't nervous. And if Max wasn't nervous, then neither was she. The judge gave a small nod, signaling her to continue. Emily wiped her palms on her dress and whispered, "Okay, boy. Just like we practiced at home." Max tilted his head and wagged his tail, waiting for her next word. "Jump," Emily called gently, pointing toward a wooden bar set up on the stage. Max ran forward, his big paws tapping against the stage, and leapt over the bar with grace. His ears flopped as he landed smoothly on the other side. The crowd gasped and then clapped. Emily's eyes lit up. They had done this trick in the backyard many times, but to see Max perform it in front of so many people made her heart swell with pride. A boy standing with his border collie muttered loudly enough for others to hear, "That was just luck. Let's see if she can really handle him." Emily heard it, but she didn't let it break her focus. She simply patted her leg and called Max back. He bounded toward her and sat in front of her, panting happily. "Good boy," she whispered, rubbing his head before giving the next command. "Roll over." Max dropped down on the stage floor and rolled over not once but twice, earning a burst of laughter and cheers from the audience. The laughter wasn't mocking this time, it was joyful, impressed, and lighthearted. Emily's confidence grew with every clap and cheer, but the hardest part was still ahead. Emily had saved her most challenging routine for last. It was the one she and Max had worked on for weeks in their backyard. She had never shown it to anyone else, not even her mom, because she wanted it to be a surprise. Her heart pounded in her chest as she got ready. She took a deep breath and said clearly, "Max, circle me." At once, Max sprang to his feet and began to run around Emily in a wide circle. His paws moved so fast, yet he never bumped into her. Round and round he went, his tail streaming behind him like a banner. The crowd leaned forward in amazement. Some people even stood to get a better look. Then Emily raised her hand high and gave the second part of the command. "Up." On cue, Max jumped up and placed his front paws gently on Emily's shoulders. For a moment, it looked like the huge dog was towering over the tiny girl. But instead of knocking her down, Max rested his paws lightly, looking into her eyes, waiting for her signal. The crowd went silent. No one breathed. Emily whispered softly, "Down, Max." And just like that, Max dropped back to the ground, sitting perfectly still at her feet. The silence broke into roaring applause. The audience clapped and cheered so loudly that Emily felt her cheeks burn, but this time it was from happiness, not embarrassment. She could even see some of the parents who had laughed earlier now smiling warmly at her. But the performance wasn't finished yet. Emily wanted to show the judges something truly special, something that proved Max wasn't just well-trained, but that he shared a deep bond with her. She crouched low, looked into Max's eyes, and whispered the words she always said to him at night before bed. "Show them how we dance, Max." The crowd didn't hear her words, but Max did. Slowly, he rose onto his hind legs again, holding her tiny hands carefully between his front paws. Together, they spun in a slow circle. The little girl in her yellow dress and the big German shepherd with a ribbon around his neck twirled together like partners on a stage. The crowd gasped, and then a wave of applause filled the air. Some people even stood and shouted, "Bravo." Emily's mother covered her mouth with her hands, tears brimming in her eyes. She had never seen her daughter so brave, so confident, and so full of joy. The judges exchanged looks with raised eyebrows. One of them leaned closer to the others and whispered, "That dog isn't just performing tricks. He's responding to her heart." Emily finished the dance routine with a small bow, still holding Max's paw. Max barked once, almost like he was bowing too. The audience laughed and clapped even louder. But just when Emily thought it was over, one of the judges raised his hand. "Young lady," he said kindly, "do you think Max can handle one more challenge?" Emily blinked in surprise. She hadn't expected a judge to ask for anything extra. Her legs trembled again, but she nodded. "Yes, sir. Max can do it." The judge pointed to the tallest obstacle on the stage, a wooden ramp that none of the other dogs had attempted yet. "Can he climb that?" Emily turned to Max. She knew he had practiced ramps before, but this one was much bigger. Her heart thudded in her chest. The whole audience waited to see what she would do. She bent down, stroked Max's fur, and whispered, "It's a big one, but I believe in you. Do it for me." Then she stood tall, pointed to the ramp, and said firmly, "Max, up." Max dashed forward with powerful legs, running up the steep ramp without hesitation. His nails clicked against the wood as he climbed higher and higher. At the top he stood tall, looking out over the crowd like a king. His ears perked up, his chest puffed out, and he barked proudly. The crowd erupted into cheers so loud that the sound carried across the fairgrounds. Emily clapped her hands and called out, "Come back, Max!" Without missing a beat, Max ran down the other side of the ramp and bounded back to Emily, sitting neatly at her feet once more. She hugged his neck tightly, her face buried in his fur. The announcer's voice rang out, almost drowned by the cheering. "Ladies and gentlemen, give a round of applause for Emily and Max." The audience roared with claps and whistles. People who had doubted her minutes ago were now cheering with wide smiles. Some even shouted, "Amazing!" and "What a dog!" Emily's eyes sparkled with tears she didn't let fall. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel small, weak, or laughed at. She felt strong because she and Max had done it together, and deep down she knew this was only the beginning. The competition wasn't over yet, but Emily and Max had already left the crowd speechless. Emily stood at the edge of the stage, her little hand still resting on Max's head. The crowd had finally grown quiet after the roaring applause, but the excitement in the air was still strong. She could see people looking at her differently now. They weren't laughing anymore. Their faces showed surprise, curiosity, and even respect. For the first time since the competition began, Emily felt like she belonged on that stage. The announcer thanked her and gestured for the next competitor to step up. Emily and Max walked off the stage together, Max's tail wagging proudly as if he knew he had just done something extraordinary. Emily's mother rushed forward and hugged her tightly. "Oh, Emily, you were wonderful. I'm so proud of you," she whispered, wiping away tears. Emily smiled but stayed quiet. She bent down and kissed Max on the top of his head. "You did it, boy. You showed them who you are." Max leaned into her hug and barked softly, almost like he was agreeing. As the competition continued, Emily sat with her mother and Max on the grass near the stage. She watched the other dogs perform, but her heart was still beating fast from her own turn. Some of the routines were amazing. A tall boy with his border collie guided the dog through a perfect obstacle course. A girl with a golden retriever made her dog catch frisbees in midair. The crowd cheered loudly for each one, and Emily couldn't help but feel nervous again. What if their acts were even better than Max's? What if the judges forgot about her performance when they saw the others? She placed her hand on Max's fur, and the warmth comforted her. Max was calm, his eyes following the stage, but his body relaxed beside Emily. He wasn't worried, and that gave her courage. When the last dog finished, the announcer stepped up to the microphone again. "Ladies and gentlemen, what a show we've had today. These young trainers and their dogs have given us one of the most exciting competitions in years. But now it's time for the final round. Each of our top 3 contestants will perform one last routine for the judges." The crowd clapped eagerly. Emily's heart skipped a beat. Could she and Max really be in the top 3? The announcer opened an envelope and read the names. "First, give a big hand to Ryan and his border collie, Shadow. Second, let's cheer for Lily and her golden retriever, Daisy. And last but not least, Emily and her German shepherd, Max." The crowd cheered, and Emily's mother hugged her again. "You did it, sweetheart. You're in the top 3. Emily's face lit up. She hugged Max tightly. "We made it, boy. We really made it." Max barked once, his tail thumping against the ground. Ryan and Shadow went first. Their routine was sharp and fast. Shadow dashed through tunnels, leapt through hoops, and balanced on narrow beams. The audience clapped wildly at the end. Next was Lily and Daisy. Her retriever performed graceful tricks, catching frisbees high in the air and returning them perfectly. The crowd loved it too. Then it was Emily's turn. She stood up, smoothed her dress, and walked toward the stage. Her hands trembled, but she kept her chin up. Max walked beside her, calm and steady, his ribbon bouncing lightly with each step. As they climbed onto the stage, Emily heard a voice in the crowd. "That's the little girl we laughed at earlier. But look at her now. Her dog's amazing." Emily didn't turn to see who said it, but the words gave her strength. The announcer introduced her again. "Our youngest competitor today, Emily, with her loyal partner, Max." Emily walked to the center of the stage. She looked into Max's eyes and whispered, "This is it, boy. Let's show them one last time." She took a deep breath and began with a simple command. Sit. Max obeyed instantly, his eyes never leaving her face. Emily smiled. Then she moved into their final routine, the one they had practiced secretly in the backyard for weeks. Speak, she said. Max barked once loud and clear. The crowd chuckled. Quiet, Emily whispered softly. And just like that, Max stopped barking and sat silently, his gaze fixed on her. The judges leaned forward, impressed at his quick response. Next, Emily held out her hand. Shake! Max lifted his big paw and placed it gently in her palm. She shook it and the crowd clapped. But Emily wasn't finished. She stepped back and raised her arms. Max, dance! Max rose onto his hind legs again and began to hop forward, moving in little steps as Emily twirled beside him. The crowd gasped in delight. They clapped to the rhythm, cheering for the little girl and her big dog who moved together like partners on a dance floor. Then came the grand finale. Emily pointed to the ramp again, the same one Max had climbed earlier. But this time she had something special planned. Max, up, she commanded. Max sprinted up the ramp with power and speed, standing proudly at the top once more. But instead of calling him down right away, Emily gave a different command. She pointed toward her and called, Max, jump! The crowd gasped. The ramp was tall and Emily was so small. Could he really do it? Max crouched low, his eyes locked on Emily. Then, with one powerful leap, he flew off the ramp and landed right in front of her. The audience screamed in shock and then erupted into cheers. Emily threw her arms around his neck and hugged him tightly. The entire fairground filled with applause. People were on their feet, clapping, cheering, and whistling. The same kids who had laughed at Emily earlier were now shouting her name. Emily, Emily! The judges exchanged amazed glances. One of them shook his head with a smile. That dog isn't just trained. He loves her. That's what makes the difference. Emily stood there holding Max close as the crowd continued to cheer. She didn't need to know if she had won yet. In her heart, she already felt like a champion. The little girl who had been laughed at was now the one everyone admired. Her mother clapped from the sidelines, tears streaming down her face. That's my girl, she whispered. She finally showed them. As Emily and Max left the stage, she whispered into his ear, no matter what happens now, you're my winner, always. Max wagged his tail and licked her cheek, and she laughed with pure joy. The competition wasn't over yet. The judges still had to decide. But everyone in the crowd knew something had changed. A little girl and her German shepherd had just touched their hearts in a way they would never forget. And as Emily sat down with Max, waiting for the results, she felt calm. She had done what she came to do. She had shown the world that love and trust could be more powerful than anything else. The next few minutes would bring the announcement of the winners. But no matter what, Emily and Max had already left everyone speechless. The announcer stepped back onto the stage, holding a small envelope in his hand. The crowd was buzzing with excitement after Emily and Max's performance. People were still talking about the way Max had leapt from the tall ramp, how he had danced with Emily, and how he seemed to understand her every word. Even though there were 3 finalists, the audience's eyes kept turning toward the little girl in the yellow dress and her German shepherd with the ribbon around his neck. Emily sat on the grass beside her mother, her heart pounding. She leaned against Max, who was calm and steady as always. He rested his head on her lap, closing his eyes for a moment as if he didn't realize how much attention he had drawn. Emily stroked his ears and whispered, "You were amazing, boy. No matter what happens now, I'm so proud of you." Max wagged his tail without opening his eyes. The announcer raised his voice. "Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the results of this year's dog talent show. Our judges have made their decision and it was not easy. All 3 of our finalists gave us incredible performances today." The crowd clapped, cheering for Ryan with Shadow, Lily with Daisy, and Emily with Max. The 3 young trainers stood side by side on the stage with their dogs. Emily's legs trembled as she climbed the steps again, but she held her chin high. Max walked calmly by her side, his presence giving her courage. The announcer opened the envelope slowly, building suspense. In 3rd place, he announced, "We have Lily and her golden retriever, Daisy." The audience clapped loudly and Lily smiled, hugging Daisy proudly. Daisy wagged her tail happily, and even though Lily looked a little disappointed, she still waved to the crowd. The announcer continued. In 2nd place, Ryan and his border collie, Shadow. Cheers filled the air again as Ryan bent down to pat Shadow's head. Shadow barked once and the crowd laughed warmly. Emily's heart skipped a beat. That meant... The announcer smiled broadly. And that means our first place winners, the champions of this year's show, are Emily and her German Shepherd Max. The crowd erupted into applause. People stood up clapping and cheering louder than ever. Some shouted, "Bravo!" Others called out, "Well done, Emily." The sound was so strong that Emily felt her chest tighten with emotion. For a moment, she couldn't move. She just stood there in shock, staring at the smiling announcer. Her mother's voice broke through the noise. "Emily, you did it." Emily's eyes filled with tears. She bent down, wrapped her arms around Max's neck and whispered, "We won, boy. We really won." Max barked joyfully, almost like he understood everything. His tail wagged so hard that it brushed against Emily's legs. The announcer handed Emily a shiny golden trophy almost as tall as her arm. The ribbon on top glittered in the sunlight. She held it carefully while the crowd cheered on. The judges walked up to congratulate her. One of them knelt down to look at Max and said, "Young lady, this is not just a well-trained dog. This is a dog who trusts you completely. That's rare. You should be very proud." Emily smiled shyly, her cheeks pink. "Thank you, sir. He's my best friend." The judge nodded with respect. "It shows." Reporters and photographers quickly gathered at the stage. They snapped pictures of Emily holding the trophy beside Max. Some even asked her questions like, "How did you train him?" And "What's your secret?" Emily didn't know how to answer, so she simply said, "I just love him. And he listens to me." Her simple words made the crowd smile. Later, as the competition ended and families began leaving, strangers came up to Emily and her mother. Parents congratulated her, children patted Max's head, and even some of the kids who had laughed at her earlier now stood quietly, looking a little embarrassed. One boy finally spoke up, scratching his head. "Hey, I guess we were wrong. Your dog's amazing. Sorry for laughing before." Emily looked at him for a moment, then smiled softly. "It's okay. Max forgives you too." She patted Max's head and Max barked happily, making everyone laugh. On the way home, Emily carried the trophy carefully in her lap. Her mother kept glancing at her in the rearview mirror, smiling proudly. "You were so brave today, Emily. Do you realize what you did? You showed everyone that size, age, and doubt don't matter when you have love and courage." Emily looked down at Max, who was curled up beside her in the back seat, tired but content. "I didn't do it alone, Mom. Max did it with me." Her mother reached back and squeezed her hand. "That's true, but it takes a special kind of person to bring out that kind of greatness in someone else, even in a dog." That night, after the excitement had settled, Emily placed the trophy on her bedroom shelf. It gleamed under the soft light of her lamp. She sat on her bed with Max lying beside her. Stroking his fur, she whispered, "Today was perfect, Max. We showed them what we can do together. You made me so proud." Max gave a soft woof and rested his head on her lap. Emily leaned against him, feeling the warmth of his body and the steady beat of his breathing. She realized she didn't care about the trophy as much as she cared about this moment. Winning had been wonderful, but what mattered most was that she and Max had faced the world together and proved themselves. The next morning, Emily woke up to find her story in the local newspaper. The headline read, "Little Girl and Her German Shepherd Steal the Show." There was a picture of Emily smiling shyly, holding the big trophy with Max sitting tall beside her. Emily's classmates at school soon saw the paper too. Some of them who had teased her before now came to her desk and said, "You and your dog are awesome, Emily." She smiled, but deep down she stayed humble. She knew it wasn't about fame. It was about trust, love, and never giving up. From that day on, people in town remembered Emily and Max. Whenever they walked in the park, families would stop and smile, saying, "That's the pair who won the show." Children would run up to pet Max, and Emily would always smile kindly, proud but never boastful. And every night as she hugged Max before bed, she whispered the same words, "We'll always be a team." Max, as if he understood, would lick her cheek and close his eyes, content. The days after the competition felt like a dream to Emily. Everywhere she went with Max, people recognized them. At the grocery store, an older woman smiled and said, "That's the girl from the newspaper. Your dog is a star." At the park, children ran over to pet Max, laughing when he wagged his tail and licked their hands. Emily felt shy when strangers praised her, But Max soaked up the attention with calm pride. At school, things were different too. Some kids who used to tease Emily for being quiet now wanted to sit with her at lunch. One girl leaned close and whispered, "I wish I had a dog like Max. You're so lucky." Emily just smiled, knowing luck wasn't the only reason Max was so special. He was her best friend, and their bond had been built through hours of love, trust, and care. The trophy gleamed on her bedroom shelf, but Emily didn't stare at it every day. Instead, she looked at Max. To her, he was the real prize. The way he followed her around the house, the way he tilted his head when she spoke, and the way he guarded her when she felt scared. Those were worth more than any shiny award. One evening, about a week after the competition, Emily and her mother went for a walk with Max. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Birds were chirping as they headed toward the park. The same park where many of the competitors often practiced with their dogs. Emily wasn't surprised to see Ryan with Shadow, the border collie, and Lily with Daisy, the golden retriever. They waved at her when she arrived. "You were amazing at the show," Lily said with a smile. "Daisy and I are going to practice harder next year." Ryan nodded. "Yeah, Shadow and I thought we had it in the bag. But then you and Max, you blew everyone away." Emily felt her cheeks turn pink. "Thank you," she said softly. "Your dogs are amazing too." We were all good. The three kids sat together while their dogs played nearby. For the first time, Emily didn't feel like the odd one out. She was part of the group, not because she had won, but because everyone respected the bond she shared with Max. That night, as they walked home, Emily's mother said, "See, Emily, people are drawn to kindness and heart. You didn't just win a trophy, you earned respect." Emily nodded, squeezing Max's leash gently. The following weekend, something surprising happened. The town invited Emily and Max to open the small parade at the county fair. Emily was nervous when the mayor himself called and asked if she could walk at the front with Max as the parade leader. "Are you sure?" she asked, her voice small. "Absolutely," the mayor said kindly. "You showed our community what courage looks like. We'd be honored." On the day of the parade, Emily dressed Max in his ribbon again. She wore her yellow dress and a new pair of shoes her mother had bought to mark the special day. As they walked down Main Street, people waved flags and clapped. Children shouted, "There's Max," and "Go, Emily." Max walked tall and proud, his head high, his ears perked, and his tail wagging like he knew he was leading the way. Emily walked beside him, smiling shyly, but her heart was soaring. After the parade, Emily knelt down and hugged Max tightly. "You're amazing, boy. I couldn't do any of this without you." Max barked softly, almost like he was saying, "And I couldn't do it without you." Months passed, and life slowly went back to normal. Emily returned to her school routine, her chores, and her afternoons playing in the backyard with Max. But one thing had changed forever: her confidence. She no longer lowered her head when others laughed. She knew now that even the smallest voice could carry weight if it was filled with love and belief. One rainy afternoon, Emily sat by the window watching raindrops slide down the glass. Max lay beside her, his head resting on her knee. She whispered, "Do you remember the day they laughed at us? I was so scared. But you never left my side. You showed them that it doesn't matter what people think. What matters is that we believe in each other." Max gave a soft woof and licked her hand. Emily smiled, resting her cheek on his head. She realized something important. Winning the competition wasn't just about proving people wrong. It was about discovering her own strength and learning that kindness, trust, and patience could achieve more than pride or show-off tricks. Years later, Emily would still remember that day as one of the most important moments of her childhood. She would tell the story to her friends, her family, and even her own children someday. She would say, "I was just a little girl and people laughed at me, but I had Max, my German shepherd, and he taught me that love can leave the world speechless." For now, though, Emily was content to simply sit with Max by her side. The trophy shined on the shelf, the memories of cheers and applause still fresh in her mind. But her heart told her that the true victory was having Max's paw in her hand and knowing he would always be there. That night, before bed, she leaned close to him and whispered the words she always said. "We'll always be a team, Max." Max wagged his tail, curled up at the foot of her bed, and drifted into sleep. Emily closed her eyes too, her heart full. No matter where life took them next, one thing was certain. No one would ever laugh at them again, because they had already proven that the bond between a girl and her dog was stronger than doubt, stronger than fear, and stronger than any challenge the world could throw their way. And as she dreamed that night, Emily saw herself and Max once again on the stage, twirling together under the lights, leaving the world completely speechless.